Hello, my loves. I am doing an impromptu live. I had posted a question asking you guys to tell me what you would like me to go live more about with the guides and, get guidance on. And I not only had this question show up this morning in the comment section of that post, but I had someone ask me to do this topic. They messaged me and asked me to do this topic. So here we are. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about family at the holidays and all the stressors that come with that, and talk about boundaries and anything else that you guys want to talk about regarding that topic. So whatever you struggle with during the holidays with your family, or with setting boundaries, or whatever the case may be, what stresses you out, what causes you anxiety, when it comes to your family at the holidays. And you can drop that in the comments and we can talk about it, and see if we can kind of lighten that load and make it a little bit easier to deal with, or at least be able to enjoy the holidays, right? So if you're just finding me, if you're brand new to me, I am Johanna Burkhardt. I am a multidimensional channel teacher and healer. And I'm here to help you manage your energy and create your desired reality. And those things are very much entwined. They're very much connected. Managing your energy is the tool, the key to creating your desired reality. You can't do one without the other. You really need to do both. And so when we talk about family at the holidays, right, a lot of us are preparing for the worst case scenario. A lot of us are preparing for the person who comes, who's the disruptor, or the person who comes in, who's the one you always have to, walk on eggshells around, or making sure everything is perfect, or worrying about this or worrying about that. And so when you allow yourself to go into those cycles, you can actually create that reality, right? You can actually create the very thing that you do not want. And so it's really important for you to become aware of how you're setting yourself up to go into the holiday season, to go into the family event before it even gets here, because you're already preparing and creating that reality ahead of time. You're already creating the reality of how things are going to play out on Thanksgiving, on Christmas, on Hanukkah, whatever holiday that you celebrate, by what you're focusing on now today. So I'd love for you guys to tell me where you're watching me from. And if you end up watching the replay, please hashtag it replay so that I know that you were here and I can give you some love for watching and joining today. So I did have a question that was put in. Like I said, I asked you guys what you would like me to go live more about with the guides. And one of the questions is how do we, I have to paraphrase because I can't log on and see the comment live. How do we hold a boundary without being judgmental? So this particular person has a family member who was an addict, who has taken advantage of family before. And she has obviously some judgments about the person and is questioning how to set boundaries without holding the judgment, right? And so when we talk about judgment means that something means something about that person, place, or thing. So a judgment is a meaning about that person, place, or thing. So we want to start there with saying, what is your judgment? And this is for this particular person. So if you have your own scenario that you would like me to help you with, please drop it in the comments. But she has a judgment about this person, right? She is judging them because what she's saying is there's been a pattern of habit, there's been a pattern of action, there's been a pattern of something that has happened every time. And so I am now defining that person by their actions, by their words, by their behaviors, all the same area anyway. So how do I now place a boundary without coming from the place of judgment? And it's really about trust. So when we talk about boundaries are our values, our virtues, our standards. What we say, like, this is my standard of treatment. This is what I will tolerate and what I won't tolerate. This is what I expect out of myself. And so therefore I won't be accepting anything less than that, right? So boundaries are very much, whether they're energetic or physical, they're very much about us. Our boundaries have little to nothing to do with anyone else. Tanya, I almost didn't recognize it because it says mindful, Leah. So boundaries have really very little to do with anybody else. And that's the thing that most people don't understand, is they think that boundaries are a fence or something they need to place on somebody else. And it's not. Boundaries have really nothing to do with anybody else. Boundaries are about you and what you will accept and what you won't accept. And putting the consequences of those actions into play. So let me give you an example of this, right? If someone comes over and they're always gaslighting you at the holidays, or they're always pushing your buttons, you have a standard. Your boundary is I will not allow myself to be spoken to that way. So when that person starts to speak to you that way, what you can say is I don't allow myself to be spoken to this way. And I'm not sure if that's your intention or not, but I feel X, Y, and Z. I feel like it's demeaning me or whatever. And this gives them an opportunity to say, and you can also ask them, like, what do you mean by that? But it gives you an opportunity or gives them an opportunity to become aware of the words that are coming out of their mouth and the actions that they are taking. But it's really important that you always come from the space of I and ownership, right? Taking ownership of how you feel, taking ownership of what you will allow and what you won't allow. And if that person continues to speak to you in that way, or makes fun of, or light of, or is, not taking you seriously, then you can say again, listen, I don't allow myself to be spoken to this way. If it continues, I'm going to leave the conversation. There doesn't need to be any disrespect. There doesn't need to be any rudeness. It doesn't need to come from a place of reaction. It comes from a place of self-love. It comes from a place of self-love. And that self-love says, listen, I'm not going to abandon myself to keep you in my life. I'm not going to abandon myself to make you happy or to avoid conflict. I'm not going to abandon myself because I think you don't know any better. Because people pleasing is self-abandoning. And a lot of people don't like it when I say that, but that's what it is. Because when you're people pleasing, you're doing something that you don't want to do to keep yourself safe in the moment. So instead, what you have to do, you have to reverse engineer it. And you have to say, if I felt safe and secure in myself, what actions would I take? I would say, I don't tolerate this. And it's not okay. From a very graceful place. And so this can play out in many different ways. In her situation, what I would tell her is with this person who has a proven history, right? She's placing a judgment. She is defining this person based upon their track record of action. What it is telling you is that you don't deem that person as trustworthy. You see them, you know them to be manipulative. But because you don't see them as trustworthy, what's really happening here is you're not trusting yourself. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust yourself to say, hey, and really preparing yourself for this interaction, right? So one, if you don't want them to be at your Thanksgiving, if you don't want them to be at your holiday event, and you're allowing them to because you feel like you should or you have to because they're blood, that's red flag number one. Like let's just start right there. That's red flag number one. Blood doesn't mean anything, honestly, when it comes to this. If our most of the family that I value the most and who values me are chosen, they aren't blood. There is no obligation. And that's something that Spirit has been talking a lot about lately, is that we're not obligated to do anything for anyone other than ourselves. Our obligation is only to ourselves. Our family uses humor and sarcasm to basically be passive aggressive to each other. Well, that's fucked up. I'm just going to say it. Like, that's not okay. Okay, we'll come back to that. So let's start with that first one, right? That first red flag is if you are inviting somebody or allowing somebody to come into your home that you don't feel comfortable with being in your home for any reason, you don't have to explain yourself. If it makes you uncomfortable, if it makes you feel unsafe, then that is the first step, right? But if you feel okay, you're like, you know what? I feel okay with letting them into my home, but I want to have some boundaries, right? So those boundaries are really up to you. You are the boundary. So you have to ask yourself, what are going to be the things that are my non-negotiables? What are going to be the things where I'm going to say, this is not okay? You either need to stop or you need to leave, because you are the master of your domain, right? You are the center of your domain always. And so the idea, and something that the guides have talked about a couple of times, I think I did this once in my membership, my YouTube membership, but it was finding that center of your domain and always coming back to that center and saying, I'm not going to abandon me. If I don't feel comfortable, I need to address this. What do I need to do to feel comfortable? So you need to set yourself up. So those boundaries are yours. They're not for you to impose on somebody else. So ask yourself, if I allow this family member to come over who has had a track record of these behaviors, what are my non-negotiables? If he says this, if he does this, these are my red flags, my alerts that I'm not going to be safe or feel okay or allow these things to happen in my home. So get clear on what those are, and then create a consequence. So I always say 2 to 3 times, if that's up to you, if you want to do 2 or 3. So again, the first time when someone says something, you can say, hey, I don't allow this in my home, or I don't allow myself to be spoken to this way. And give them a moment to go, oh, what did I do? And you can say, well, I don't know if it was your intention, but this is how I took it, or, whatever their action may be. On the second or third time that you would bring it up, there has to be a consequence, and you have to follow through with that consequence. This is how trust is built. Trust is built by follow through. So if you have to do what you say you're going to do, if you don't do what you say you're going to do, one, nobody's going to trust you. They're going to walk all over you, and they're going to know you're a pushover, and they can take advantage and manipulate you. And two, you're showing you can't trust yourself, because you said you were going to do something to honor yourself. You said you were going to do something to have your own back. And then because out of fear of rejection or abandonment or whatever else the stories come up, right? Because our inner children can sometimes take over this consciousness. We don't do it. And then so that creates a further divide within you, because now your inner children really don't trust you because you aren't keeping them safe, and you're allowing someone else to walk all over you just to not rock the boat. So that is probably the 2 biggest things that I would say. Number 1, are you doing something that you don't want to do in the first place? Are you allowing something because you think you should or you could, or because it's what society says or family says is acceptable? And 2, what are your non-negotiables? Like, what are the things? What are your standards? What are your values? What are your virtues? What are your non-negotiables? Get really clear on those. And if those are violated, what consequences are you going to be comfortable taking? And get really clear on that before you go into that. And then after that, it's just courage. It's just courage to do that. I can't see my little screen. So our family uses humor and sarcasm to basically be passive aggressive to each other. Passive aggressive is, and I'm guilty of this. I've spent a lot of time being passive aggressive, so I have to call myself out on this. But when we're passive aggressive, we're basically, and I'm just going to say it, we're just being pussies. We're just being pussies. We can't own that we're angry or that we're agitated or that we want to poke at somebody and say what we mean. So we say it in a passive way because we are wanting to avoid the conflict while still inflicting the pain. And so we feel hurt and we don't want to feel that hurt in us. So we project it in a way that won't necessarily invoke additional conflict because we're afraid of conflict. That's what passive aggressiveness is. And if you don't like that, if someone's being passive aggressive and you don't want them to be, right? And you're like, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm not okay with this. Then that's your responsibility. Your boundary is to say, hey, you know what? I don't know if you're aware of this, but you're coming off. I feel like what you're saying is very passive aggressive and it doesn't feel good to me. So if you have something to say to me, I would prefer you just say it, right? Or you have to get very clear on what you will allow and what you won't allow. And a lot of times family is passive aggressive because again, they're hurt by something, and that's not your pain. Their pain is not your responsibility ever. We can still be kind and compassionate, right? And empathetic about somebody being in pain. And we can change our behavior and our words to be mindful of their pain, but their pain is ultimately their responsibility, right? So, but family, we tend to be triggered around family. We tend to be swimming in our pain when we're around our family. And so there's a lot of projecting going on. But if you have a lot of avoidant attachment style where you don't want to be in conflict and your family has a lot of that too, then what will happen is it becomes passive aggressive because it's a way of projecting that pain back out in a way that doesn't create more conflict in the moment. I think it's because we were not allowed to be angry. So we are, sarcasm. Yeah. Well, yeah. That makes a lot of sense because if you're not allowed to be angry, you're meant to repress. You're forced to push your pain down or taught to push your pain down, and so it comes out passive aggressively because again, you don't want to get in trouble for telling somebody, "Hey, I'm angry right now." Like again, you're responsible for your own anger, right? But if someone is continuously doing something or saying something that is triggering you, your job is to say, you know what, this triggers me. And we can then, and the person I'm talking to, her and I do this all the time anyway, is we tell each other, at least I do, I tell her all the time when she triggers me, I have to sit with that, but then she's really mindful about like, okay, if I do this, this can trigger, not to walk on eggshells, but just to be mindful, right? But her and I have a safe relationship. So we're okay expressing our emotions. So when we're around family doesn't always, especially if you are self-aware like we are, they're not always okay with expressing their emotions intelligently, right? They want to be passive aggressive. They want to do the silent jab. They want to, do all those things. And that just sucks. That just sucks. And I wouldn't want to be around that either. I wouldn't want to be around that. Oh, but yeah. So that's me answering the question. Does anybody else have any other scenarios that they would like to have me look at or talk about when it comes to family at the holidays? The only other thing that I feel like that's coming up is this need to, I could say please. It's not really a people pleasing thing. I think it has more to do with control than anything. It's fear of things going wrong. Things need to be perfect. I need to be the hostess. I need to go above and beyond. And I just want to remind you guys, because I used to be that person. I was the one, I was in the kitchen, I was doing everything, I was prepping for days, I was making everything beautiful. I wanted to make sure everyone's needs were met. I was trying to make everybody happy. And you know what? I was the one that was always miserable. I was the one that was miserable all the time. Everyone was happy and enjoying themselves. I was freaking miserable. I hated it. I hated it. My joy was in the cooking, right? That's where I found my joy. It was in the cooking. But I started to get resentful because nobody appreciated it and everyone was having a good time. And I am an extrovert. I'm a social butterfly and I wanted to be social and I wanted to be a part of that. And so if that's you, if you're somebody who feels like I have to prep for days for the holidays, I have to make sure I'm doing all of the things. I have to make sure everyone's happy. I need to make sure that everyone has the food that they like and want. And you are focusing everything on them. You are self-abandoning. You are not doing what's going to make you happy. You aren't feeding yourself in that. And I want to bring that to everyone's attention because that is a really big thing that especially women tend to do at the holidays And what if we went back to a more communal way? Right back in the day, everybody pitched in. Everybody came with either a dish, or they all worked, together in the kitchen. Like, it was more of a family thing, right? Where it's not where one person is doing everything and everyone else is sitting with their feet up watching football. That builds resentment, that builds anger, that doesn't feel good to a lot of people. So if that's something that resonates with you guys, keep that in mind. Like, maybe this year, and it may be too late for Christmas or Thanksgiving, but maybe you can do this for future holidays. Try to make sure that you are including yourself in this. What gives you joy? What brings you joy? What feeds you? What do you want to enjoy this holiday? So do you want to have more social time and rest time, ahead of, maybe this year you don't cook, maybe this year you order the meal and you pick it up, that way everyone can just be at their social, right? So remember, for things to be a healthy compromise, it has to be for me, for you, which equals for us. If it's only one-sided, that's not a compromise. If you're making someone else happy and you miserable, that's not a compromise. If you're making yourself happy and everyone else miserable, that's not a compromise. A healthy compromise is where everybody has come to an agreement where everyone is okay, right? Everyone is copacetic. And that can only happen if that includes you. So ask yourself this holiday, whether it be Thanksgiving or Christmas or any other holiday that's coming up, or any other family event for that matter, are you including you in what you need and what's going to bring you joy? Are you including you in that? Are you arranging this holiday and making it special, not just for everyone else, but for also for you? Because I think we often forget about ourselves. How would you handle family functions with someone you did set boundaries prior that is attending? Well, the same way, right? Because boundaries are you, not the other person. So if you're going into that family situation knowing that this person in the past where you have said, hey, this is not okay with me, and they've done it anyway, then you have to really be prepared with a set of consequences that you feel comfortable placing. Whether that means you leave the house that you're attending, right? So if you're going to someone else's house or someone's coming to you, either you leaving or asking them to leave, being prepared to have the courage to say, you know what? Hey, I don't allow this. This is not something I'm comfortable with. If you can't be here without being this way or speaking this way, either I'm going to leave or I'm going to ask you to leave, right? It depends on whose house this is at. So you have to be prepared and armed with, if you already have an idea that these people are going to, this person, right? Or these people are going to not give two shits about what affects you and what you like or don't like, or what what's not okay with you. And you've already previously set that and they've already ignored it. Then you have to really stand your ground. That's a really good test, and be like, if they do that, I would only give them one chance. I'd be like, hey, I'm not okay with this. I don't allow this treatment. I don't allow myself to be spoken to this way. If it continues, this is the consequence. And if they do it again, you have to enforce the consequence. Because again, the only way for someone to trust that you are serious is for you to back your words. Your actions have to be what you say they're going to be. Because we can't just tell someone like, you can't talk to me that way. They can do whatever they want. You're not the boss of them. But you can say, I don't allow myself to be talking to you that way or be treated that way. So now the power's in your court. What are you going to do if they continue? And that may ruin your night because you may have to leave, right? Or they may have to leave and it may cause a scene. But it doesn't have to be ugly and disruptive. And now, doesn't mean they won't try to make it that way. But it all comes back to you. And boundaries are always about you and your standard of treatment and what you will and won't tolerate and what you will do. Like, what is the consequence going to be? Are you going to back your words? Because that's how trust is born. So that's what I would do. And I've actually had a lot of practice with this recently, not in person, but even in long term, like even with family relationships where you're on the phone or using Marco, if you use the video chat Marco Polo, where I've had to, say, hey, like, this is not okay with me. What you're doing is not okay. And if it continues, like, then I don't need you in my life. I will be on my own. And people don't like to hear that, right? The person I had to say that to didn't like to hear that, and just completely bypassed it and kept going on like it never even happened. So if it happens again, then I'm going to say, hey, you know what? This is what, you're out of my life. I'm done. I gave you that chance. I told you I'm not okay with this. I'm not going to allow myself to be treated this way. And it's really hard to do with family, right? Because we think, oh, we should let it be okay because we only have one mother, we only have one father, we only have one sister, we only have one brother, we only have one cousin, whatever it is, right? It's family and their family, and we should make excuses for family. No. When you make excuses for your family, you are hindering their power. That's like pity. It takes their power away. You're saying they are incapable. And we know damn well everyone is capable of being respectful. They don't have to understand what they're doing. They don't have to understand anything, right? They don't have to be self-aware, but they can be, everybody is capable of self-respect and being compassionate. They're capable. But when we make excuses for them, we're taking their power away, and we're saying that they're not capable. And we're saying we're not going to hold them accountable. We're not going to hold them accountable. So that's my take on it. Oh. Does anyone else have any questions about dealing with family or boundaries in general with family? Also, you guys keep an eye out. I am going to be actually on Black Friday, so the day after Thanksgiving. I will have, I know one for sure, a very big offer, something I have never offered before, is going to be offered at a special price. And there may be a second offer. I haven't decided yet, but I feel like there's another offer that wants to come in. So we'll see. But keep an eye out on your email list. If you're on my email list, on your email for Friday, or on my social media platforms, because I will be announcing a very awesome offer on that day. And it will be a weekend thing, so you'll have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to take advantage of it. But I am not putting it out until the day after Thanksgiving. I'm not doing all this pre-Black Friday nonsense. And one of the programs is really helpful when it comes to boundaries, energetic boundaries especially. And that's the other thing. A lot of us are very sensitive, where we label ourselves as empaths or highly sensitive people. So just something that actually came up with a private mentor student today in their private mentor call, is that a lot of us energy readers like myself, our training ground, our school was our childhood. We were always plugging into other people's energies to try to mitigate conflict before it happened, right? So knowing what somebody needs or assessing what their needs, reading their energy, reading their mind, reading their field to try to prevent any conflict or any issues, right? And this is, a lot of us grew up this way, whether you label yourself empathic or highly sensitive or not. A lot of us did this, right? And a lot of people who are narcissist, abuse survivors, right? That's another part of it, right? Is always reading the energy, always reading the person, and trying to figure out what's about to happen so that you can mitigate it before it happens. And so a practice that came through for her in private mentorship that I'm actually going to go ahead and share with you right now is to get in the habit, create a practice, whether it's a visualization or just a knowing, of plugging into yourself. Because this is what's happened for a lot of us is, we always have one part of the plug into our heart, right? That's connected to us, to source. But the other half is like this cord that's just flailing around, and it's just plugging into random people, places, and things to get a source of power. Meaning your power comes from, I need to either be the light of the room. I have to be in control so that Controls comes from being in fear, right? I need to be in control, or I need to know what they're about to do or say so that I can prevent it from happening. That is very draining, and that is very self-abandoning. So we want to get rid of that practice. And this is not something that will happen overnight. So don't think that it will, because you've spent your lifetime reading other people's energy in order to mitigate something from happening to keep you safe. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that is what you did to cope, right? It's a coping mechanism. And it's a way to keep yourself safe. And so if you find yourself falling back into that, don't shame and blame yourself. But I want to bring this awareness so that some of you can maybe practice during your holidays. So leading up to the holidays, just do this visualization practice with me. Imagine a cord, one side plugged into your heart, and the other side, you see that cord flailing around. And I want you to visualize that cord, you grabbing that cord and plugging it into your solar plexus right underneath your heart. Your solar plexus is your own cosmic sun. It is your source of power, and we want to be self-generated. We want to be self-powered, empowered. We don't want to place our power or give our power to anyone else. We don't want anyone to have power over us. And when we plug in to other people, places, and things, we are giving away our source of power. So what we want to do is visualize that other plug plugging into our solar plexus, and seeing one plugged into our heart and one plugged into our solar plexus, and begin to see that there's a cycle going from the solar plexus into the front of the heart, through the back of the heart, back into the solar plexus, and just see this circle, spiral, generating power, generating light. Right? Your solar plexus is your cosmic sun, it's your internal sun. And seeing that like a generator, once it starts going, it starts to light things up. So I want you to see all of your body starting to light up, and allow your power to just create this beautiful light inside of you that emanates out into your field. And I want you to notice, as you do that, how you feel as self-powered, self-generated. What does that feel like? So I want you to practice this. And even beyond Thanksgiving, make this a regular practice of placing your power and plugging into yourself and visualizing that power, creating and building and expanding your own internal light to expand outside of your being. And anytime you feel the need to give someone else your power, or to please somebody else from a place of fear, to let someone have power over you, I want you to visualize yourself unplugging from your solar plexus and watching your light dim and plugging into them. Because I think that with that visualization and the understanding, and this came through from the guides in my, like I said, my private mentor student call today, it's very powerful, because once we have that visual, it makes it really hard for us to do these things and give our power away, and allow ourselves to plug into other people, even from a space of mitigating, right, to keep ourselves safe. When instead we can go, oh, if I do that, I'm abandoning myself and saying I have to give my power to someone else to be safe. And I am safe within me. I am safe to say, I deserve to be treated better. I deserve to be treated with respect. I deserve to enjoy my holiday. I deserve whatever it is. You're worthy of that. And if they get angry, right, they're not mad at you. They're mad that they can no longer use you. So know that when you put a boundary and say, no, this is my standard and I will not take anything less, you are going to have people that get mad at you, but they're only mad at you because they can no longer use you. Thank you for the crown. And so that is a very powerful thing to keep in the back, to plant that seed. They are responsible for their emotions. You are not the reason that they are angry. They are angry that they can't use you anymore, because they were using you as a power source, as a power supply. So get really comfortable with self-generating. And this is going to take time, this practice, because we're so used to running other people's energy through our body as a source of power or being powered, that when we start to self-generate, and I know that I went through this, sometimes I still go through this. When I'm self-generating, it feels foreign. But you're not alone, because when you're self-generating, you're multidimensional. So you're connected to every other version of you and every other time, space, reality, including the guides that are also you, because your main guides are also you. But all the other timelines, realities that you are running, because there really is no time. So there's no past or future lives. They're all happening at the same time. So when you are self-generated, you are backed by every other version of you. It is an army of your own light. So you're not alone. So I hope that that helps somebody, because I feel like that is a really big light bulb that a lot of us need to sit with and practice. Okay, any other questions before we wrap up this live? And just a reminder, if you want access to the replay, if you're watching on TikTok, you can go over to YouTube and you can click the link. It's not the link in my bio, but the little toggle things in my bio will get you to YouTube or Instagram. YouTube will have the video from TikTok up there, so you can watch the replay. All right, my loves, well, look out for that holiday Black Friday special that will be out on Friday. And I might pop in once before that time. But if I don't, I wish to tell you guys, I wish you guys a happy holiday, whatever you celebrate. And just to remind you to not abandon you, to stand in the solidarity of you and bring you joy, and to consider you. Don't just consider everybody else, okay? So I love you guys. Thanks for joining. I will see you next time.